7:14. Like I say, we got a little bit of a format change here with Mike Huckabee announcing for president. So bear with me while I learn a new format clock.
Hey, Dale.
Hey, let me turn your mic on. People can hear you a little bit better. How you doing?
Good morning, Dale. Doing great. Doing great.
Monday morning, got outside. Hey, we had a little bit of rain.
I'm loving this weather. This was a nice weekend.
Had to turn that little wiper on the back window a little bit. And
got my nose itching, so don't be surprised if you hear a big sneeze in the middle of all this.
In stereo, one on the left, one on the right. That's true.
We went motorcycle riding yesterday, and one of the guys that went with us, and I'll tell you how bad the pollen was. One of the guys that went with us had on a cotton T-shirt that was black.
Oh, no.
And we got down around Harriet, on Highway 14 South, and we stopped.
Green.
Yeah. It was.
Talk about a filter.
His shirt on the front of it, on the chest of it, was just covered up in pollen.
Oh, that's funny.
Yep.
Okay, ready to put a black shirt on, go ride a motorcycle, get rid of the pollen, filter it out. Oh, I tell you what, of course, my vehicle's blue, with navy blue or just blue. That dashboard can turn as green as Dublin on St. Patrick's Day. Yeah. And I got the leather cleaner, that Turtle Wax makes. I use these blue windshield towels. I'll spray a little bit on there and wipe that dashboard down. It comes out just, And it was caked up underneath, I've got the window washer on the back glass. Well, after the wiper had relaxed itself and stopped, there's just like a quarter inch of pollen just built up at the base of the wiper.
We need a pretty good rain to knock some of this down. When people come in up at Minute Mechanic, we wash their windshields when we do the oil change. And some of those cars that come in, the pollen is so thick on the glass that when you're washing the windshield, you smell it.
Really?
Yeah, you can smell the pollen.
Wow.
And it's thick.
Huh.
Yep.
Wow. Welcome to May in Arkansas.
Yeah, that's right. We do it every year.
It beats snow any day. I'd rather sneeze than freeze. Okay?
Yes, I'll take sneezing over freezing every day.
I'd rather sneeze than freeze. All right, we've got Chevrolet Impala has a noticeable clunk in the left front when I hit a bump. Quick strut.
Yeah, you're probably right on the money with that. Good chance that it could be a strut mount, something along those lines. We see that a lot. Maybe even a sway bar end link, those things will get loose.
That's bad on Chrysler.
Yeah.
They're bad on Chrysler.
A lot of the sway bar end links now are remember back in the old days when it was a stack of rubber bushings and some washers and a nut, and now they put the ball and socket joints,
Tie rod style.
And
Chevrolet did that too?
Yep. Most everybody's doing that now. And when they get loose, if they get worn out, man, they'll clunk like crazy. And when you replace them, many of your replacements now have grease fittings on them, so you can lube them just like you do a tie rod end or a ball joint.
I've got it clunking on the right front. I got to take and retorque mine. On the Chryslers, man, they've got to be torqued.
Yeah, they got to be pretty tight.
Yeah.
And of course, then the other thing we talked about was maybe a strut or a strut mount. A strut mount is what attaches your strut to the body of the car up at the top, and they're a metal and rubber piece of machinery with a bearing in them, and they'll wear out, and they let it move, and then you get a clunk and when you're hitting bumps. And either way, if it was a strut mount or if it's a sway bar end link, things like that, either way, it's not usually a big deal. Now there are other things that could be doing this too, but that's the two in my mind, in my experience, that's the two most common issues that will cause what they're looking for.
And the Chevy Impala is. And I remember the Impalas from the late 50s, early 60s, mid 60s. They're all good cars. And then like in the 70s, everybody kind of went, build a car? What do you mean? We run out of glue, where you couldn't keep anything together. The Impala has come back and become quite the reliable car. And here's where I'm going with this. On my Chrysler product, I did quick struts, and that includes new bushings, new springs, new shocks, everything, and then had Minute Mechanic realigned. And let me tell you what, you talk about a difference.
Yeah, especially with that '08 Impala. Didn't it say it's an '08?
Just says Impala.
Oh, Impala.
Mm-hmm.
You get one of them with enough miles on it, and that quick strut's a good idea. It sure is. And of course, while you're doing that, we need to check other things, like the tie rod ends and the like.
And you found that on mine.
Yep. And once you get that stuff replaced, the thing will ride quiet. And you're right, Impalas are good cars. We service a ton of them. I mean, a bunch of Chevy Impalas. And, man, they went to that new body style about 14. And before that they were kind of a rounded, kind of a almost like I hate to use the word generic, but they were kind of a plainly style car, man. And about 14 or so, Chevrolet really upped the ante, and that Impala's a nice looking
Yes, they
ride.
are.
Very nice
Yeah.
cars.
So if you got that clunk in your Impala or your Dodge or your Ford, whatever,
Bring it in. Tony can check that stuff out for you. Take it maybe for a little test drive, and then put it on our alignment rack and start checking front end parts, and we'll figure out what this noise is. We deal with this stuff just about a daily basis.
Yep. Now here's the '08 Jeep Wrangler. They want to do a lift kit apparently. Do you do lift kits?
We do.
Really?
Oh, in some instances, yes. Dennis up at the shop, and there's going to be a ton of people out here who have seen him around town in this Jeep that he built, and it's very impressive. And Dennis does a lot of that kind of stuff on Jeeps. He's put a couple of different lift kits on for people. We did one a couple of weeks ago, and this was on a 14 Jeep Wrangler
Really?
Rubicon. Yeah, put a 3.5-inch lift on it. The guy put new shocks, new this, new that. I mean, it was a big job. And Dennis did all of that, and it turned out great. The Jeep looks good. We did an alignment on it after we did the lift, and it drives good. And
That's the big kick right there, is
Yeah.
making sure that front end is aligned with the rear end on a lift.
yeah, and anytime you take a vehicle and lift it 3.5, 4 inches above what the factory recommends, you're going to have to do some alignment adjustments on that.
Some
And plus, he
massive
put
alignment.
some, I think he put 37s on there. Put some big tires on it.
What's this modern day Noah getting ready for a flood?
Oh, he had
All
some.
we need is the animals now.
He likes those kind of vehicles, you know. The
Yeah.
guy that had it done, he's got a Bronco that looks about like it, and but yeah, we do some lifts. If you're looking for somebody to give you an estimate on a lift on a Jeep or a Chevy truck or something along those lines, give me a shout. We don't do every one that comes in the door, but we do a lot of them, and plus the fact that once we get done with it, we can do an alignment and have you you'll be ready to hit the road, and
I wasn't a big fan of the lift kits back in my day of doing alignments because of back then it was lift a Dodge, lift a Chevy, lift a Ford, but we didn't have the parameters for caster camber, toe in, and even steering axis inclination to make sure that the vehicle was still set to standard with the lift.
yeah, and the lift kits are much improved over what they used to have. Like everything else, just about in the automotive industry, the lift kits are well engineered if you buy a good one. And of course, now you're dealing with different kinds of vehicles, and there are more. We have more ability now to be able to get the alignment the way you want it, or the way it should be. And like the Jeep we was talking about, we had to put a couple of offset ball joints in the top, in the upper ball joints. Had to replace them with offsets.
So you had to extend the camber out.
And man, it's right on the money.
There you
And,
go. Yeah. See, we didn't have that. Did you get that through Moog?
No, it's a company called Specialty Products,
There you go.
and you take a reading on the car and decide how much more camber you need, and then you order the ball joint by that. Do I need a degree? Then we order a 1 degree ball joint. And,
See, there was a time in the early '70s, Cadillac. You used to do your camber adjustment. And get a load of this. You would have to split the upper ball joint, and they had a cam, and you had to guess at how far to turn that cam and lock that ball joint back together to adjust your camber on those cars, on the old Cadillacs.
really.
You know about a pain in the neck. Split the ball joint, turn the cam, lock the ball joint, take your reading. If it wasn't right, loosen the ball joint, adjust the cam, tighten the ball joint, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And
I can imagine a smart guy like you, Dale, after a little while would know about how much he was looking for. Huh? Come on, Dale.
yeah, after 4 or 5 of them things.
Yeah,
you
you'll
finally-
figure it out. But with the offsets, they take that guesswork out, because you take your reading off your alignment. I need 1 degree. I'm off 1 degree on the camber. You order a 1 degree offset ball joint, put it in there, and you're right where you need to be. And now, like I say, that's what we had to do on that 14 Jeep. Put some offset ball joints in the top, but it aligned well. And what we tell him, like we tell everybody else on a big job like that, is drive that thing for 2 or 3 months and bring it back, and we like to double check everything.
Yeah.
Let all these parts settle in good, and then let's just make sure the alignment's where it should be. And because tires are so expensive. People's heard me say it 1,000 times. You don't want to chew the edges off of tires because of an alignment issue. You know, alignments are relatively cheap compared to tires these days.
That's true.
Yep.
Let's talk a little bit about the motor oil and filters you got down there.
Man, I tell you what, we went through a bunch of it last week.
I bet you
Yeah,
did.
last week was a busy week. You know, we do a bunch of oil changes at Minute Mechanic, and we get people with all sorts of vehicles. You know, we're starting to see more European vehicles coming in now.
Really?
Yeah, and that's one thing I was meant to mention today. This afternoon, we're gonna have our Snap-on Solus Pro, our scanner is what people call them. That's kind of a generic term. We're gonna have it updated to where we can do some diagnostic stuff on European vehicles. And also, we have not been able to do alignments on newer European vehicles because they have a steering angle sensor like everybody else does. And after an alignment, you've got to reset that steering angle sensor back to 0. And we're going to have our scanner updated.
So you can reset.
If you've got a Volkswagen Jetta, a Passat, or things like that, and you're needing some alignment work, give us a shout, because by this afternoon, we'll be in the midst of doing stuff like that. And anyway, where I was headed with that was oil. We was talking about oil and filters, and yeah, we're seeing more European cars. Seems like Volkswagens are getting to be a little more popular. Yeah, we service a bunch of them. And if we do not have the oil in stock for your Volkswagen, we can have it in just a few minutes. You know, we got a Napa and an O'Reilly store, and those guys keep that in stock. For most cars, most of your American cars and Japanese cars, the oil that you need is sitting on our shelves right now.
Yep.
And we got a bunch in stock, and we can cover about anything that's on the road. We have everything from a 0W20, and if you look hard, you'll find a few jugs up there of 20W50 for some people driving older vehicles and different things.
Like my OME.
Yeah, they want some heavy, thick. We've got a little bit of everything. From 020 to 2050, we've got it, and most everything in between. And filters, it's rare that we re-encounter a car that we do not have the correct oil filter for. When we do, we order it and have it in just a few minutes. And that's one of them deals. If people want to speed it up a little bit, if you have an odd vehicle, we serviced 2 Range Rovers last week.
My goodness.
We did.
Wow.
We serviced a big full-sized Range Rover, and then we did an Evoque, which is their little sport utility one. We did 2 of them last week. And if you have things like that, sometimes the filters can be odd. And if you know you have one and you're going to bring it to us, man, if you'll call me that morning, we can get you in that afternoon, and we'll have everything sitting there waiting, and it will speed up your visit with us.
Call your supplier and get it in. About a minute and a half before we go to break here, quick question. Somebody's just gone out and bought a used car. Say they needed just an extra car for around town, and say you bought a 12 Ford Focus 2-liter, but you don't know what kind of oil they've had in previously. What should if it's had synthetic or if it's had standard regular conventional
petroleum oil?
What should you do? I mean,
well, if you don't know what's been in it, you don't know. And if for the most part, like on a 2012 Ford Focus, my first inclination
at 60,000
would be to tell somebody to go back with the factory recommended oil, which would probably be a Motorcraft 5W20. That's the factory fill lubricant for Fords is Motorcraft. Go back with that, and that way you've hedged your bets a little bit. It's good oil. It's a semi-synthetic. We stock it at the shop. We put in a ton of it. We do it in a lot of Fords. And if you've got a question on something like that, always default to, in my mind, you default back to what's recommended.
Well, that was kind of a trick question because that happened to my son. You know, got this used car, and let's just go back to default. So we went back to a conventional 5W20.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that way you're safe.
Yeah.
That car is going to run just it. How many millions of dollars, does Ford invest into research and stuff like that? And they decided that this 520 or semi-synthetic is what gave the best performance in that Ford Focus. So we'll let Ford spend the money on that, and we'll take their advice.
Minute Mechanics located Highway 201 North across from Salvation Army. 425-3135 is their number. No holidays this week. They'll be there Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. You got one coming up, though, in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, that's nice to hear, Dale. Been listening to this for 5 months out of you.
Give Mike and the gang a call today. I'm sure they can get you in today or sometime this week at your convenience. And we've got the news coming up and other good things. At the second half of the show, we're going to have Tom Stossel, author of Pharmaphobia, on the phone. So stick around. We'll be right back.